Hey guys, how's it going? Today in this video, I want to talk about early spring care for hellebores. That's what I'm working on outside of my garden today, so I thought I would just walk you through the process. I'm going to be doing a little bit of trimming and fertilizing. First little batch of them is right behind me. Let me show you. So inside of this little boxwood hedge that I'm trying to grow, I've got some pink frost hellebores, and if I get close, you can see that they've got a ton of buds, absolutely beautiful, but the foliage is lacking. It's looking a little bit sad. And hellebores are an evergreen perennial, like their leaves will last through the winter, but by now in at least zone 5, they're looking a little bit tired and tattered, and I just want to clean them up so when they actually start to bloom, nothing's distracting me from those beautiful blooms. So I have this little patch and then I have them in another spot, so let's head over there. So this area gets dappled light, so it's a little bit harder to see, but I think that this actually is the best example of what hellebores usually look like come spring in my area. I'm gonna try not to cast a shadow. You can see all of this beautiful new growth in the center and then all of the old tattered leaves around the outside. And then we've got one that's looking especially beautiful right here. And these are a little bit more difficult to get cleaned up because all of their foliage, like it doesn't look too bad, and it's very incorporated into where the blooms are. So this one I have to spend a little bit more time on. This one is easy. And then I have a whole bunch of new ones that I planted last year that are not very big that I just need to do a little maintenance on. So I've got my pruners out here. So what I'm gonna do is just take down all of the affected leaves all the way down to the base of the plant. So I'm gonna clean all of the hellebores up and then we'll move on to fertilizing. See, it's really easy. A leaf like this right here, you just follow it all the way back, clip it right at the base of the plant and remove it entirely. Doesn't that look miles better? Oh, and I can't wait for this one to bloom. It's got really deep purple, almost black colored blooms. And for those of you who may not be familiar with hellebores, they're also called Lenten rose or Christmas rose. And they are just one of the most beautiful early blooming spring perennials you can put in your garden. And I'm not sure exactly the zones. I think maybe like 5 through 9 is kind of standard for a hellebore. There's probably some varieties that can go colder, and I'm not sure about warmer, but they've been just such a joy for me to have in my garden because, you know, this time of year we're craving color, craving, you know, activity out in the garden, and the hellebores really bring that. So anyway, I'm gonna continue cleaning these up. So this whole section is done, and you can see that I did leave the foliage on some of them. So this one right here, this is what came off from around the base of that plant. Just from this right here, that's a huge pile, but the top foliage still looked pretty nice, so I left it. It's just such a good time of year to prune hellebores because you can really distinguish between old growth and new growth, and you can see on some of them I just left the new growth and the blooms. Here's a closer look here. And then you can see on this one, like, definitely new growth here, new tender growth. Lots of buds on this one. But this one right here, this is a Corsican Hellebore. So I had to be very careful when pruning this one because if you take a closer look, the leaves are also attached to the stems that have buds on the top. So if I were to take these stems all the way back down to the ground, it would also be removing the blooms. So what I did is I just went through and kind of cleaned up as best I could. I mean, I could spend more time and, you know, cut individual leaves off just down to the stalk rather than to the ground. So let's head over and clean up those other hellebores quick. These are actually much easier to see. You'll probably see a stark difference between now and when I'm done pruning them. But you can definitely see new growth versus the old tattery growth. Night and day. They look so much better all cleaned up. Here's a close-up look. See all those blooms? I cannot wait. We are in for a really pretty show. Next thing I'm gonna do is fertilize, and I'm gonna add some flower tone in around each plant. So for established plants, it says to do 1/2 cup around the drip line. So what I'll be doing is taking approximately a 1/2 cup and just sprinkling it around each plant and just kind of scratching it in with my hands. bit of mulch and this bed looks so much better. The hellebores look great. It even makes the boxwoods look nicer, which they've done really well in this area. I'm really happy about this whole spot, and it's amazing how big each one of those hellebores gets. I mean, it gets to where you can't even see soil at all. And I actually do have some hostas that are tucked in around the back of this pot. So the last thing I'm going to add today is a little bit of slug bait, just to start in with preventative care so that my plants don't get a bunch of holes in them. And this is organic. It's iron, phosphate, and spinosad. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of this around the base of each plant. See, we're trying to avoid holes like this. You can see on last year's foliage, which while I'm at it, may as well cut those out. They don't look good. So that's pretty much it, you guys. That's basically all you have to do to keep your hellebores happy. Just trim off any dead foliage late winter, early spring, give them a good dose of fertilizer, give them some slug and snail bait, and do that consistently if that's something that you deal with in your area. And then the next thing I'll have to do is just deadhead them after they're done blooming. I actually leave their blooms on for quite a long time because they last forever, and even after they're kind of done and the blooms aren't at their peak, they still look pretty. So I usually don't deadhead them until really late on in the season. The only other couple things to keep hellebores happy is to put them in the right light. So they like a shaded to semi-shaded location. These right here pretty much are in shade all the time, except for maybe in the summertime, a little bit of sunlight in the morning. And then that other area I showed you with hellebores gets dappled light pretty much all day. So I would say it's a little bit more than 50% shade in that spot, and those do really, really well. And they do not like to be transplanted. So once you get your hellebores in place in the garden, once they're established, I would not dig them up and move them. Most plants are resilient and they can handle that. They don't mind being divided and moved around. Hellebores do not prefer that. You might even risk shocking and losing your plant. So once you plant it, leave it alone. Do the things that I just showed you and you'll have a really happy hellebore. And if you don't have any hellebores, I would just highly recommend and suggest that you add some to your shade garden because they really are a fantastic plant. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.